What do you make of just recent developments? Just the last couple of days of, is McMahon coming back? The board votes unanimously to have him back, but the deal with the Saudis isn't yet in place. What do you make of the last couple of days?
It has been crazy. The board actually voted unanimously on around December 27th to not have him back. And then a couple of days later, there's a whole big shakeup on the board due to Vince. Vince puts 3 new people in and takes 3 out, and then 2 others quit. And then the board votes unanimously to put him in and to facilitate a sale, which we all knew that a sale was always possible and even probable, just because it makes a lot of sense for Comcast in particular, although there's others in the game. And then Stephanie on Friday tells the company, all the employees, they have a big meeting, and says that nothing's going to change. Vince is just there for a sale. The people who are running the company are going to be the same people running the company. And then she's gone. Then she announces her resignation, not a leave of absence. She left the board of directors and she left the company completely. And that was a surprise. I mean, she had done she had announced a leave of absence, and then 5 weeks later came back, when Vince basically started having his public problems, as far as the Wall Street Journal articles and everything. So she came back to be the CEO of the company, co-CEO. And now Vince is back and she's gone. So anything that happens, that they say or anything like that, 5 days later, it can be completely different. It is a whirlwind of things that are going on there.
Is this Succession?
It certainly seems to be an even more crazy story than Succession. Yes.
Because this is not fake, correct? This is real.
No, this is all real. Yeah. None of this is playing out on television. On television, they haven't even announced Vince back yet. And I guess technically, he's not back. He has not been on the road. He has not been at the matches. Of course, that could change in a week too. But what we are told is that, what we've been told is that he's not going to do that. He is going to be, that Nick Khan is running the company, and that Vince will be, working on the sale and later the media rights deals. And Vince is the majority shareholder of the company. And then if he sells, I would presume he's going to sell to somebody who's going to put him back in position as the guy running the company. The story is far, far, far from over. It's going to play out over the next many months. And probably even the next year and a half.
But what do you find most interesting about it? Storyline, soap opera, all of it, because Vince McMahon is going to get away with this, isn't he? He just increased Wall Street. Wall Street loves WWE with Vince McMahon doing all this stuff, correct? He increased the value of what was happening with the idea they would sell.
It's not so much that Vince increased the value. It's the fact that people heard the word sale and they see that they believe that they can, in a sale, that whoever's going to buy it is going to buy it at well above the current price, which means that people will be able to get a major profit. So that's the word of a sale coming this summer. And it's not a guarantee that will happen, but it's probably going to happen. And they're working very hard on it. That's what's gotten Wall Street excited. When Vince left, it wasn't as like the stock went down. It actually went up. So we had all wondered, well, what's Wall Street going to react to when Vince is gone? And they really didn't. But then when the word sale came in, if it was not for a sale, I think that the stock would have probably dropped because people would have looked at it like there's chaos there. And Vince is back, and after the board doesn't want him back, and Vince has got the scandal, situation, and there's some thought. In fact, one of the board actually wrote a letter saying that there's other things that haven't even come out publicly that they're worried about, which is why originally they voted not to bring him back. So, but the sale thing has just changed the whole Wall Street thing. So now, the stock's skyrocketed in the last couple of days.
But what do you find most interesting here? Storylines and other things?
As far as pro wrestling, or as far as just this?
Everything. Just the idea that Vince is in, Vince is out. Vince is going to go to Saudi Arabia. Vince is going to get away with everything. Vince is going to sell the team for a profit. Stephanie McMahon, his daughter, can't be around any of this stuff, is leaving, one would assume, in disgust because she can't be around him, just firing board members to put himself back in charge.
I know, it's a crazy story. When he left, there was always that thing of, would he get bored? And this is his life, and want to come back. And I thought some of the stuff that had come out, in the revelations, as far as like women that had been paid off and everything, some of the stuff that was in those things was very, very ugly. And I thought, okay, that's it. He really is done. And here he is. Other people have done for less, and here he is. He's back. And it's like I said, it's a crazy story. I'm sure that his goal is to be back in charge fully of the company and run the creative of the company, because that's been his life. And where that leaves Paul Levesque, who's been running the creative of late, that's another issue that right now they're saying that's not going to change, but things change there constantly.
You mentioned Paul Levesque, Triple H, his on-screen character. He had recently taken control of creative. His wife had come back to the company, as you mentioned, now resigns. He's in a bit of a precarious situation right now. Most people that follow wrestling, like myself, just think it's a matter of time before Vince tries to grab at that control
Yes.
of creative. Is this indeed just a matter of time?
I don't know for sure. Everyone speculates that. I mean, I wouldn't expect it until after WrestleMania, but long term, I mean, every possibility is on the table. There's nothing that's too outlandish. Something more could come out on Vince. Who knows? But right now, I mean, it's not like, when Vince, before he left, it wasn't like sponsors and things were running from WWE and there was a lot of change, or the fans are going to be the fans no matter what, no matter who owns it. The same fans are going to be the same fans. There'll be some that might leave in protest over Saudi Arabia, but it ain't going to be a significant number. And, if the Saudi Arabia deal does go through, and I was told they are not the favorite, but it absolutely is not out of the question either. That, then if they go private and everything, then everything changes again. If it's a private company, if it's bought by Comcast, just as an example, then they're part of a public company, and Vince will have overseers, and it could be, for him, it could be harder if more things come out. If it's a private company, not so hard. Vince probably could be in charge and survive anything.
Anything. So there were reports of that Saudi deal being done. Those reports were then retracted, and there were strong denials. Ariel used to be rep by Nick Khan, so I think we can trust his sources there when he said that it wasn't done. There was circumstantial evidence that WWE's highest ranking woman in charge stepped down as that news also broke, which was interesting. You mentioned that the Saudi Investment Fund is one of these finalists, one of these contenders. How would that go over with the talent?
I don't think the talent would be thrilled by it, to say the least. But, again, when you're a pro wrestler, you kind of go where the money is. And there will be exceptions. I mean, there'll be people that will be upset. Is it possible some may leave? It's possible, yeah. I don't think it'll be a mass exodus or anything like that. But, I mean, put it this way. On Tuesday, when that rumor started flying, there was a WWE taping of NXT, and everybody was really down and scared. And now, after that story kind of was like, okay, it's premature, people were a little relieved, but they were, when Vince came back, everybody was kind of like freaking out, because everybody had been happier. I shouldn't say everybody, but most people had been happier in the environment without Vince, and now Vince is back, and it's kind of like, all that, Levesque was real popular as far as with the talent, as far as like head of creative. And he had different visions and everything than Vince does of who could be a star. And there's a lot of people who Vince has a more narrow view of who can be a star. So there are a lot of people who don't fit into the Vince parameters of being a star that were like, oh my God, I just came back here. Some of whom, many of whom were fired by Vince, and Paul brought him back. So it's like, if you were one of those people who was fired, then you'd probably be really scared. So, it's, but the Saudi thing had people freaked, and they're a lot less freaked today.
When you say Saudis aren't the favorites, who do you think is?
I don't know who would be. I mean, the logical one is Comcast, because, NBC, USA Network needs Raw. Their ratings, their overall ratings plummet without Raw. And NXT's also helps their ratings. So you take that away from them, and it's basically USA Network becomes a very also ran network after, being a powerhouse for so many years. And NBC could put SmackDown on Friday nights, or they could put it back on USA. But I mean, NBC would be the favorite. They also already have the deal with Peacock, so they could get the next day rights for Peacock. They're a key part of Peacock. So I would have to say that they're the favorite, and they spend. NBC is spending right now close to $500 million a year on the product, and if they get SmackDown, you up that to over $7. 270, and yeah, so it's like about 470, and up it to close to 670. And if they buy it for like, whatever it would be, yes, you would still have rights fees, but you'd be paying yourself in basically. So it would make a lot more economic sense to be the owner rather than the renter of this franchise.
What's it worth?
Well, the stock price worth is over $6.5 billion the last time I checked yesterday. So, it would go for more than that. I saw a number of 8.5 billion going around, which is crazy. We thought years ago when UFC sold for $4 billion, that's when I heard everyone in WWE going like, oh my God, they got $4 billion. And our company is, they're similar size and similar scopes. And they thought maybe they could get that, but evidently nobody came up with that deal. But now, that's what they're hoping for, is a number. And that's a big number. It's going to, it's not an easy number to make that kind of a commitment, even if you're a major media property, especially right now, because, who knows what the future of everything is. Everything's in a big transition right now.
What's the most accurate reporting on Stephanie McMahon's departure and the reasons for it and what surrounds it?
That's a really good question. I guess the thing that I was told is basically that she was going, she was ready to leave for the leave of absence and was called back because Vince was no longer going to be CEO. So she became CEO and co-chairwoman of the board. And now Vince is back, so she's going to retake her leave of absence. Now, of course, that doesn't make perfect sense because, number one, this is not a leave of absence. This was a resignation. And number two, when she was taking her leave of absence, she was going to stay on the board and have her fingers in it. But the idea that she's going to, go home and raise her kids and she doesn't need the money. So whatever you want to do that's the most fun, and perhaps the stress of the job and things like that is not something that she wanted, and but obviously this is a different situation than before. And the fact that she came back, that she left right when Vince comes back in power, that there's something there, obviously.
You reported that Nick Khan met with Bob Iger and Jimmy Pitaro at the college football championship game. What's happening there? Are those visuals? Nick Khan kind of shadow ran ESPN for a long time as CAA's big agent. And so he's got a relationship with those people. What does it mean that he was in their presence?
I don't know. It's again, they're at a football game. He knows everyone. He knows everyone. You guys know that. And, so but I'm sure that that's part of the thing, so he met everyone when he went to the football game, all the key people from a lot of different companies. And
let me ask it a different way. Is Disney actually a player in this?
Possibly they're a player in this. I think everyone has to look at it. The one good thing about WWE right now is that as television ratings across the board decline, WWE, which had declined for years, is staying steady and even going up in places. So it's going slightly up. So from a television standpoint, they're a valuable property, but they still don't fetch the ad rates that other shows do. The SmackDown numbers on Friday night, they're usually tops in 18 to 49, if not second, but the ad rates are still much lower than most of the other shows. So it's actually a money-losing proposition for Fox. So if you're, but still, it's like if you're going for ratings period, they're a safe bets, and they can help any company because it's 5 hours a week, 6 hours a week of programming, 52 weeks a year, no reruns. So and solid ratings and consistent ratings.
Before we let you go, can you tell us what are your most interesting observations from everything surrounding the Dana White video and everything that he had to say yesterday?
Man, the Dana White thing is crazy, and I've been someone who's, I covered Dana since the day he took over, basically, and obviously, I've had a relationship with him and things like that, and it's really, I saw that and I just felt horrible because the visual was so bad, and he said that, why that there's not going to be any repercussions. And I don't know how there can be no repercussions in the sense of, they took him off the Power Slap commercials. I saw that last night with the new commercials voiced over without him. But so those are some of the cosmetic changes. But I think that was too public, and that there should be something, and more than a slap on the wrist too. I mean, it was a horrible thing to watch. It really was. And I mean, and he'll say the same. I mean, he basically said, "Do not defend me. I do not deserve defense. I have to live with this the rest of my life." But he said, "Why punish other people for me not being there? If you do something to me, it doesn't hurt me because Dana's loaded with money." But even so, I think that the whole thing of him doing that and getting no repercussions, I just don't see. I think that's a real bad situation. Should he be gone forever? That's a tough question. Should he be gone for a while? I think he has to be, but it hasn't happened, and looks like it's not going to happen.
Whittingham was asking earlier, based on some of what Dana White said yesterday. Dana White saying, well, you're just hurting the business. I can go away for 30, 60 days, just vacation for me. And I was making the argument that we don't understand how much Dana White does. I was making the argument, my guess is that Dana White not only believes that, it's probably true, that if you do send him away, you will be hurting the business more than you will be hurting Dana White. And he was asking, how uniquely qualified is Dana White to do that? There's nobody else who could do his job?
There's always someone who can do his job. These companies, look, the money that these companies make, that this company, like with WWE, make, is contractual from television. It's not like if Dana's not there, the money is going to be the same. Are there things? Is he a great promoter? Yes, he's a fantastic promoter. I know there's people who will argue that it's time to move on from Dana. This week I can't argue that at all. I think that. You can say that about anyone. It's like, if you have someone who's super, super rich and does something really, really bad, they're still going to be super, super rich. So they're not going to be hurting financially, and perhaps they're very valuable. And Vince would be the same situation. Although when Vince left, it isn't like business went down. Business got stronger and morale got much stronger when Vince was gone. And Dana is similar to Vince in many, many ways. I mean, the company's not going to collapse without Dana White. It's going to be in the same position because financially, the fans are the fans, and the fights, it's going to be who makes the fights and everything like that. They've got matchmakers. They've got other people. And would it hurt the company with Dana not being there? Yeah, probably. But you know what? That's one of the prices you have to pay, I think, when somebody does something wrong. When somebody does something wrong to that level and people know about it, it's not behind closed doors. We've seen it. It's an ugly scene. I think that you have to do something. And I'm kind of unhappy that they didn't do a lot, from the Endeavor standpoint and the ESPN standpoint too, just put the pressure on them. It's like, look, we're paying all this money for this product, and this guy, we have to show that we have a spine when it comes to this, because it's just too public. And, at the end, they were afraid that, nobody wants, if you're in a corporate situation, you don't want Danny's a valuable guy gone, but sometimes you got to bite the bullet. If the star player, on an NFL team does this, does it hurt the team? Yes. If the player is super rich, does it hurt him? You could say no, but you still got to do it. You can't just let him play and pretend nothing happened.
So why aren't they doing it if it doesn't hurt the business?
They probably aren't as confident as me that it won't hurt the business. When you're ESPN, just as an example, it's like, yes, UFC will be getting that, their, hundreds of 500 million or so from ESPN for all of their programming. But they get the same? Do they think that they will get the same value and the same promotional ability without Dana going out there and promoting? Probably not. I mean, but from a UFC standpoint, the revenue is going to stay the same. From an ESPN standpoint, will the pay-per-view number go down because Dana's not promoting it? Maybe it will. I think that obviously they're afraid that it will. And that's probably why, because money in the end talks, especially when it's a giant investment like the UFC investment ESPN has with the UFC.
To be clear then, you've covered all this stuff for a long time. The place that Endeavor, UFC, ESPN are saying this is the value of punching a woman on video, or slapping a woman on video. The what that is worth to us is we don't think it's worse than needing the next 30 to 60 days of Dana promoting for us.
That is what they're saying. Yes. And whatever money that is worth, that may not be all that much, but they're afraid that it will be. That is what they're saying, and look, when you're a dollar and cents public company trying to make the most money, I can see the pressure of it. But at the end of the day, some things have to be addressed. And the fact that they're, saying, hey, no one's happy. And I'm sure no one's happy. But I just think you got to take action. And I think it's kind of embarrassing to everyone that a guy can do this and essentially get no punishment from it. Like, is he going to get away with it? Is his reputation scarred for a long time? Yes, he said he has to live with it forever, and people are going to remember that video. I'll always remember that video, when I think about Dana, and it was a very ugly video. But, again, sometimes you got to bite the bullet when a guy who is in, who's very valuable to you does something so visual and so bad. So I don't... But yeah, their decision is that the money that they believe that he is worth in that position overrides punishing him for slapping his wife in public. And again, it was one slap, but then he kept, even though they were blocked and things like that. It wasn't just a quick reflex action. It was more than that. And yes, he was drunk, and yes, it was the worst thing he probably ever did. And it's whatever. But it happened, and we saw it. And I think that's the real problem, because now we see we see that, and then with the power slap thing, they took him off it, but he, as far as promoting that, I mean, the key to that success of Dana's promotion of power slap could make the difference between that thing making it and not making it, and TBS did pull him off the promotion of it, which probably was the right thing, but so that TBS actually is the one that may be hurt the most without Dana promoting, because it's a new product. UFC's an established product. And you take Dana off of that. Dana's a big part of that thing. So we'll have to watch a TV show to see if he's still on, but he was taken off the commercial. So in that sense, TBS did make a decision, but it's not like they dropped the show. They moved the show back a week.
Thank you for being on with us, Dave. We appreciate it.
Anytime, Dan. This was great.